guest is the operations manager of Blue Lives Adventure, the amusement park dedicated to creating law enforcement-themed family fun for all ages. It's up to my guest to ensure all the police attractions run like It's up to my guest to ensure that all the police attractions run like clockwork. In his off time, he enjoys whiskey pong. Please welcome Pauly DeWalt.
Dean, thanks for having me.
Hello, Pauly. Wow, a new amusement park dedicated just to showing people like the fun side of police work, huh?
Yes, it's about time. You know, you see all these action movies coming out with police, and I don't want kids running around thinking that police work so terrifying or that it's so hard being a cop. We really got to make sure people know it's fun and all the fun that we have. I'm used to be in that realm of work, and now I'm operations manager here at the amusement park. And
so you're a former law enforcement officer that's gone into the the operational side of this amusement park.
That was critical because they really wanted to make sure we could capture. We have a lot of fantastical characters and all that at the amusement park.
Sure.
And you just want to get that if you had an experienced law enforcement yourself.
I see. That makes a lot of sense. And you say the thing about the action movies, but a lot of people do criticize. They say like these action movies actually glorify police work in a way that it's not accurate and it's all propaganda. And they're sort of putting you in the same bucket with your amusement park in the same bucket with those sorts of depictions.
Oh well, I kind of agree that those action movies are really cool and those are perfect for a certain demographic of youth that we're trying to target. But when we came out with this, we realized that if you ask any 1-year-old, 18-month-old, they don't know much about law enforcement. And we realized we had to get them aware of what's going on in their communities.
Yeah, well, famously, that's what happens. It's like, you can't see an action movie until you're, 13 years old or what have you. And if you're in the early stages of your life, you really want to get them while they're very, very young to get them to understand that police work is nothing but fun and great.
It's so fun and so great. And it just breaks my heart knowing that for so long, kids back in the day had no idea.
Right.
No idea.
Right. Now, you do get some opposition, like I mentioned. You get people, they're calling it like Cop Disney World. And also famously, you did clear half of a state park just to build the thing, which got a lot of people mad. But how are you responding to these sorts of criticisms?
I personally love amusement parks and all that, so I'll address that in a second. But, the key part of it being a state park, law enforcement is a state thing, a state agency. So there's no difference. It's still a state park, and that's what I would say to those people.
It's still a state park. It's just a state amusement park, not a state nature park.
Exactly, and we're the first in the nation to have a state amusement park.
Oh, really?
All other amusement parks are, of course, we're a subsidiary of all this, and it's kind of a halves-y-halves deal. But, we worked with the city.
It's a public-private partnership between the state government and Hartswick Cooper, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so you've gone from collecting your paycheck from the state police to collecting your paycheck from Hartswick Cooper.
Exactly.
You're still a cop doing his job, essentially.
I view it as I'm still in that profession, just my paycheck's from someone slightly different now.
Yeah. I was looking at a list of all the attractions at this amusement park. Amazing. It does go sort of from one end of the spectrum to the other. Like I have on my list here, you got a roller coaster that simulates a high-speed chase.
Oh yeah, love that.
You got a whole thing where you get to save kittens from a tree.
Mm-hmm.
But then it goes a little darker here. You get to reach your arm through a hole and tase somebody.
Yes, exactly.
I wanted to get you talking about all of those and who designs all these amusements and how do you make a choice as to what part of police work you're going to feature at this place?
Well, we had a big list when we were first starting out at the amusement park. We had a big list of things we wanted to make sure people knew. The high-speed chases that you mentioned, saving kittens. We had to fight with the fire department about that one, but we got it. So.
Oh, that's good. Well, they don't have a state park yet.
They don't have a state park. Hopefully. Don't tell anyone. You didn't hear this from me, but maybe the other half of the park might be a state park.
Wow. Who needs all those trees and lakes anyway? Nobody uses them.
Yeah. And so after those first two, we were pretty happy. And then pretty much tasing people was the next one, obviously.
Oh, really?
There was no, everyone agreed in the boardroom when we were discussing this is we got to let them tase someone.
Right. Because that's one of the things actually a lot of people, I would imagine, when they want to become a cop, that's the big thing they want to try to experience. What's it like to tase somebody? Right?
Most people don't know that, but that's usually the top question we get at the park.
Really?
Because we have police officers, they're getting paid to some participate in the park. They're still cops, but that's the question that they're always asked is what it's like to tase people. And I'm glad we can just point them down to the...
And now, do people ever ask what it's like to be tased? And who is being tased on the other side of that? Well, I don't want to say glory hole, but it's a little bit of a hole in the wall where you can't see the other person.
Yeah, we try to avoid the word glory hole. It's a family-friendly park. We just call it the lightning hole.
The lightning hole.
The lightning hole.
That's much better.
Yeah, and it's usually people who, actually I can't disclose who's behind it.
Oh, you can't?
I can't. It's under NDA. I'm sorry, Dean.
I'm sure if I'm sure that the people on the other side of that wall most likely did something to be there.
I think the line of thinking you have right there is exactly right. I can't say exactly, but I like the way you're thinking. And if I was running the park, that's the route that I would go down.
Wow, it's almost like that. Wasn't there a scientific experiment at one point where they put someone in a room and they said if you push this button, it's going to electrocute somebody like a mile away or whatever? And then depending on whether they were told the person was a good person or a bad person, they would feel remorse or not. Right? Is that based on that scientific?
No, exactly. Actually, in the boardroom, when we were doing the research on how the TASE experiment would work, that was actually one of the top reports our team looked at and said, people got their jollies on this way, and they didn't able to experience it. We could definitely hear the people yelping on the other side of the wall. Yeah. That was the part that was missing. But
from the experiment.
From the experiment. Now we're actually making sure you can hear them. You can feel them move around a little bit, too, when you're doing it.
Yeah, it's like a 3D experience.
It's a whole 3D experience. And,
wow. Yeah. Is there anything else at the park that you particularly love that paints, certain parts of police work in a positive light?
Yeah, I think the water park portion of the park is just huge. Blue, just getting those two things together.
Sure.
We have our seal, Puppy McGruff.
The crime seal.
Yeah, the crime seal. Yeah. It's a little bit confusing because dog and, seal, but, he just kind of lets kids understand what's going on with police work.
Especially as it pertains to the water, or is it not a...
Oh, no, pretty much he's pulling over whales. Kind of like you're on this, you're going on this experience with him. He's pulling over this whale. The whale's over cargo load, so he's getting a ticket and he's in big trouble.
I see. So it's kind of a ride along on the water.
It is, exactly, and you're definitely going to get splashed, and that whale's not happy to get pulled over.
That's not a thing you'd get on a normal ride along. You wouldn't be in a splash zone normally. Huh?
No, and that's the whole thing. We had the action movies for older kids. We had to target those younger kids. We got to get them more excited about police work.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm sure. Is there any other aspects of police work? Do the kids ever get to hold a perp down or put handcuffs on them or do anything like that?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
I'm trying to think of how you gamify that.
That was one of the trickiest things, and I think we're still working out a lot of the kinks.
Okay.
Right now, we had a bunch of new interns join. Mm-hmm. That was, we call that V1.
Yeah.
They're the people being held down and handcuffed. They're trained professionals. Sure, they get banged up a little bit.
Yeah, it's like playing, when they do those trainings with fake car accidents and we get a bunch of actors to pretend that they are injured, right?
Exactly. And they might be a little bit shocked. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't mention that they look a little shocked or anything like that. But yeah, that's first version.
Did it scare the kids to watch interns writhing around in pain on the ground?
That's the big thing we've been trying to reinforce. Yeah, is definitely with that.
You want to try to desensitize the children to that violence,
right? Because at first they're like, "Oh, this seems bad," but we definitely have, Puppy McGruff the seal, in costumes there, reassuring the children. No, this is fine.
Right.
This is encouraged. This is the way it's done.
And then you get the small child to step on the guy's wrists.
Yeah.
So you get them involved and stuff.
Exactly.
Very smart. Yeah. Wow. I want, this is all fascinating. I want to hear more about it, but I do want to ask about your hobby real quick before we move on to our second guest. Whiskey pong. I've heard of beer pong. What's whiskey pong?
It is very, very similar to beer pong.
I had a hunch.
It's very, very similar, but pretty much the glass is all the way full.
Okay. Stakes are higher.
The stakes are higher. The glass is full.
Of whiskey.
So it's an expensive game. I'm paid well. I'm just not to brag, but you're not going to go to a college dorm and play whiskey pong.
So even with them trying to defund the police, it's almost like we're putting even more money into police, into frivolous police stuff.
I mean, it's important. You got to make sure that the people in uniform, they're compensated fairly for their work. Right. And a lot of, me and a lot of the guys, we prefer whiskey pong.
No, I do, not to get off the whiskey pong thing, but I do know that, because you're a public-private partnership, there are going to be real cops and there are going to be park employees dressed as cops walking around. And then you get people, I know you've had some issues with kids like who lose their mom at the park or whatever, and then they go ask a cop and the cop turns out to just be an actor. Like, how do you deal with the fact that the uniforms are the same across the park for real and fake cops?
Yeah, no, that's definitely a challenge. And we view it as a learning opportunity for these children. I knew I was lost back in the park.
How to suss out a real cop?
Yeah, no, and I know that was the experience I had as a small child, and I want to make sure, this might be a little bit inappropriate, but I think kids today are a little too soft. They can't handle being away from mom and dad for too long. Yeah. We actually have a lot of zones in the park designed to actually encourage this encounter. Because the more these kids can interact,
to separate parents,
just to make them stronger.
Sure,
and have them
have
them figure out who's a real cop and who's not. Because I'll be honest, that's a lot of what it's like being a cop. Because there's a lot of undercover people, butt back and forth. But that's my old job.
That's your old job. Yeah, it is interesting because I remember hearing as a small child, like, if you get lost, make sure you find a cop.
Yes.
And of course, there are other populations of people who don't tell their children that. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, it's definitely puzzled me for a long time.
I'm just going to
guess they just can't figure out who's a real cop and who's not.
Right, that's got to be the issue. So whiskey pong is beer pong, but with like full red solo cups of expensive whiskey.
It's not solo cups; they're actually glass. They're actually kind of like crystal, very nice, really well refined. They break a lot.
I bet they do.
Yeah.
And you play this. I'm sure you don't play this on the job, right?
Well, it's a hard time when it's like 3 p.m. on a Friday. It's kind of like HR's already gone home, if you know what I mean. So
casual Fridays at the park with giant steins full of whiskey.
Exactly. That's the way it goes.
It sounds like fun for kids and adults, this place.
I would say, we're hiring. Definitely come in. Great. We definitely need more interns. That's definitely we have a dire need for more.
High turnover on that.
High turnover. It's a great experience. You're not paid, but you're paid in experience. And I think that's the greatest thing we could give a young individual today.
Absolutely. And people don't want to work anymore anyway.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Well, we're going to move right on to our second guest. Thank you. We're going to keep you around, of course. Well, folks, my second guest today is giving older women a second chance at life. We're going to find out what that means. But before we get to that, let's pause and hear a quick word from our sponsor. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And we're back. I'd like to remind you at this point, as I do every show, that I, Dean Ardenfell, am not and have never been an employee of Hartswick Cooper Media or any of its subsidiaries. Okay, we've been talking to Pauly DeWalt from Blue Lives Adventure Theme Park, and now I'd like to bring in my second guest, who is in a whole different corner of who works for a whole different corner of the Hartswick Cooper world. She is the lead plastic surgeon at Recaptured Relevance, the cosmetic surgery firm that helps women in their 40s look like women in their 20s so they can stay in the working world. On weekends, she enjoys lizard spotting in the Hollywood Hills. Please welcome Tamara Branman.
Hi, Dean.
Hello, Tamara.
Hello.
Well, so interesting and so important, the stuff that you do. And I know, it says right here on the brochure, nobody likes a lady boss, but everybody likes a girl boss.
Exactly. So I came up with that, Dean.
Did you really?
Yeah.
So these women, who get to the point where they might not seem relevant in the workplace anymore, they come to you and you fix them right up, and then they look young as they were before, and they can keep working.
Oh, exactly. I mean, Dean, have you heard about the wage gap?
They throw that around a lot on MSNBC, but I don't pay attention to that.
Yeah, well, in addition, there's an age wage gap.
Age wage gap.
Age wage gap. And, women earn about 72 cents to the dollar for a man. Older women, they earn 50 cents to the dollar, man. So
it's a depreciating asset, women.
Yes. And when I was going through medical school, I was like, how can I make the most money as a doctor? And I saw a gap. I saw a gap in the industry, and I went for it.
You went for it. There's a wage gap and an age wage gap and a gap in the medical establishment that allowed you to slip right into that gap.
Yeah, I could have become, a family practitioner. Sure. They don't make a lot, Dean. So I saw plastic surgery, and then I saw women who need to earn more, women who have maybe some insecurities, And I just stepped right into that.
Wow. Yeah, I don't understand why women would have those kinds of insecurities. Once they get to 40 years old and they start not coming up for promotions and stuff, does that make them insecure in some way?
I mean, it's a physical, an emotional, an intellectual insecurity. It's like back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, when women started entering the workforce, they were excited. Men were excited to have them in the workplace because they're shiny objects. Women are shiny objects to men. Right? Yes. And as women rose up the ladders in these offices, corporations,
but they were newer to the workplace, so they rose up slower and behind the men.
Yes.
Makes sense.
And then they realized, there's a glass ceiling, but there's also a concrete ceiling. So they smash through the glass ceiling. They're in the workplace, but then once they hit a certain age, they bump up against that concrete ceiling.
I see. And so your whole job is to sort of like get them past that ceiling by making them seem younger and more relevant than they are, like just visually.
Yes, and I think
more pleasing visually. Yeah,
when you're more relevant visually, you are more relevant to the economy, and any boss can appreciate that.
That's true. Yeah, any lady, not a lady boss, but a girl boss. So what kinds of things do you do to make these women look more like 20-year-olds than 40-year-olds?
Have you heard of full face replacement surgery?
I thought they only did that with like burn victims.
See, you're behind the times.
I guess I am.
I mean, it started as a way to make sure that burn victims could have a fulfilling life. But as with anything, we have taken that on and have decided to make money off of it. And it is surprising how successful it can be replacing a younger woman's face, or replacing an older woman's face for a younger woman's face. It's like you can't even, I'm so good at my job, you cannot even see a scar in one location.
Now, I hate to even ask this question because it seems sort of grotesque and personal, but are you architecting a brand new face to put on this woman, or are you using an existing face of, say, a cadaver of a younger person? Like, how are you getting the face that you're putting on to replace the old face?
Deep. It's a mixture.
Sure, it's very medical.
It's a mixture of both. We do always need cadaver faces.
You do.
We always need that. That's the base.
That's the base?
That's the base of the face.
You gotta have a good face.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And once we had that cadaver base face, we then can go in. I have very, very tiny tools, Dean, for facial reconstruction surgery. So the base is there, and then I can even lift that cadaver face. No wrinkles by your eyes, no wrinkles in your forehead. I can even plump those lips of that cadaver-based face.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense that you would have to do that, because it seems like a cadaver face would probably lack a lot of the celluloid and the water and the things that make a face look like an alive face, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of plumping, and do you know where the plump comes from, Dean?
I don't know.
From the subject's
posterior
ass cheek.
Okay, wow. So you'll like liposuction a little bit out of the posterior of the woman and put it straight into their cadaver face.
Right into their cadaver face.
I'm so glad I asked this question, because it really is illuminating a lot of technical things that most people wouldn't even know about.
No, I'm a medical professional, Dean. I went through many years of medical school, and it's very difficult work that we do, but we are changing lives.
I wonder, if you were in medical school, presumably you had to dissect human cadavers in your medical school. When you were doing that, were you looking at a cadaver on a table and thinking, like, I can use this to make 40-year-old women look younger?
I mean, it sounds morbid when you say it, Dean, but if I were to guess, I think that is where the first spark of inspiration came from. Wow. That and just traditional horror movies.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess some things like that happen in horror movies. They're usually played for gore rather than for, improving a subject's life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I mean, you yourself, Dean, could you even imagine cutting into another human being? Plastic surgeons are a different type of breed, you know?
They sure are. I don't know that I could do it. I get real woozy every time I see blood or anything.
I can imagine that.
Yeah, wow. So you like to spot lizards in the Hollywood Hills?
Yep. It's actually meditative for me and somehow also connected to my work because lizards they're really chameleons. Mm-hmm. You know, they can change
their appearance.
Yes. So I get a lot of inspiration from spotting a lizard.
Also, there's the lizards who, when they get scared, their tail comes off and then it grows back later.
Yes, and I'm so glad that you mentioned that, Dean, because that's my next venture. I mean, I have my practice, Recaptured Relevance, and my next venture is Recaptured Limbs.
Recaptured Limbs. What does that entail? If you don't mind the pun.
Yeah. Well, we grow in a petri dish, but a large petri dish, if you can imagine. We regrow human hands, human arms, human legs.
Now, that seems like something that could be very valuable if you could connect those human limbs back to a person who might have lost them in an accident or something. But I have a feeling that that's not what your firm would do, because you're a cosmetic firm. So are you replacing limbs of people who don't like their limbs anymore? How does that work?
Yeah, so if you can imagine, growing a limb is really expensive. It's really expensive. Insurance doesn't cover it. I would say, an arm goes for about $60K. So the clientele is unfortunately usually not the one that has lost a limb in an unfortunate accident. It's men and women. We're branching out to men who just don't like the look of their calf muscle.
I see. That makes so much more sense. If your choices are get a calf implant or replace your whole leg, it makes a lot more sense to replace your leg, I think. Or what happens if these women, they have Michelle Obama arms, and then they start to get saggy arms, then you can just pop on more Michelle Obama arms. Right?
Have you ever done online shopping, Dean?
Oh, sometimes I window shop online. So my bank account is always so low.
Yes, so but you're still scrolling. You
see
all these images.
Stuff that I would get that if I had.
Yes, and you're like, that model looks great in that plaid shirt. It's the same concept. Yeah. Same concept here. We already have a kind of pictorial directory of arms and hands and legs, and you can just choose, Dean, whatever you want.
I'm going to do that. I obviously can't afford it, but I'm going to window shop on the website and see what kinds of. Because if I imagine if you have enough money, you can put you can almost like one of those children's books where you can turn the pages and change the top and bottom half. Like I could build a super Dean that would have certain size arms and different color legs and all sorts of things, right?
Exactly. The one downside is it might cut in. We might be cutting into the mission of our original Recaptured Relevance venture because I don't know if you know this. Men with bigger arm muscles make more money.
I see. That
makes sense. If we're catering to men, also catering to women, that wage age gap.
I'm going to say that's a good thing because what happens if you take a CEO and you give him bigger arms and he starts making more money, that's just going to make the women underneath him more insecure. They're going to need more face replacements with cadaver faces. I think you're right on track. I think you're creating a market and you're strengthening the market.
Dean, we could hire you.
I don't think so. I'm unemployable. I do want to bring back my first guest though and see if he's got any thoughts on this. And I always like to see if there's any connection and any way to work together and all that. So, Pauly, what do you think here? What do you think about Tamara's business?
Oh, Tamara, I'm blown away. My brain's going with all the ideas of what we can make possible with. I think there's a lot of synergy between I didn't even know your subsidiary existed until right now.
It's amazing. I bet you, given the fact that you are always, even just the fact that Tamara is growing body parts in a petri dish, to me seems like I bet you the park could find all sorts of uses for a loose limb.
Oh,
in a ride or something.
Oh, of course, I would love that. Just the fact of getting more limbs, because crime scenes. You gotta actually create that experience. When it's foam, let me tell you, it's not the same.
Yeah.
I look at that. I've seen so many cadavers in my time on the force. It's just the foam doesn't hit like a real cadaver.
Pauly, I mean, I want to be able to offer my services to public-private partnerships. I want to. It's a matter of profit.
Luckily, they're well funded because people tried to defund them, and then luckily we had some good legislators who said, no, we don't need to defund. We need to give you even more money. And they took that money and they knocked out half of a state park and built an amusement park with it for educating young people about the wonders of police work. So I feel like they're well funded enough to work with you, right?
Actually, I think I might be able to bring you some more leads and more revenue to you. Actually, we have a lot of people, at the park, a lot of women who, were kind of more front-facing PR. They recently turned 40 and, back office.
You have a lot of women who just recently turned 40.
Recently.
Wow.
Work in your back office.
They were all front office originally, but then they turned 40 back office.
See, Dean, I tell you, this is happening in small businesses, in large businesses all across the country. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, yeah. I think we can definitely do like a revenue share. I'll just send you, I have all their contact info. I'll just send it to you. You can start marketing to them. I think this is the start of a great new relationship.
It also, to me, would you say that you value strength in a police officer?
Oh, when you were talking about that, I was just thinking about my boss. His arms are huge.
Mm-hmm.
Giant. He's curling all the time.
That's one of the big criticisms people have about female police officers, right? So they don't have the upper body strength.
They don't have the upper body strength. That is, honestly, that's also...
I also had another brainstorm here.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about separating children and their parents.
Yes.
As a matter of teaching them how to toughen up and find police officers. What if we had a little kiosk? I say we. I really mean you, of course. But what if there was a little kiosk where the woman could go in and get a face replacement with a cadaver face while their kid was wandering around the park getting lost?
There we go.
I would have to cut down our surgical time from about 22 hours to 1, but I can make it work.
I think if you can do 15 hours, I think that's enough to toughen up some of these kids.
Oh.
15 hours lost in the park while their mom gets a face replacement.
That will change you. That will change you as a person.
And it will
a lot more
change
respect.
you seeing your mom's new face as well.
Oh, that's true, because once they finally are reunited with their mom, she is going to look much different than they remember. So they get to learn what a real police officer looks like and what their mom would look like if she was 20 years younger.
Yes.
Exactly.
And Pauly, do you want a promotion? I mean, I heard you were the office manager.
On the way up the ladder?
I'm trying, to be honest, I hit the men's version of 40. I hit 65 recently.
Oh,
wow. The men's, but you're right, that is the men's version of 40. Yes,
it is, yes.
I'm also noticing that your arms maybe aren't as beefy as they might be.
That's what I was going towards, Steve, but I didn't want to say it. So
I'll be honest, I need help. I want that promotion to VP.
Okay, I think we're going to get Pauly some new arms.
Oh, thank you. That's exactly what
Pro bono.
Pro bono?
Yeah.
Wow. Dean, you made this happen.
I didn't think you did anything for free, Tamara.
When I'm promoting my own business and I have this platform like yours, Dean, I'll sometimes do pro bono work.
Yeah, it's a loss.
That's it. It would have been really hard to take out that kind of money out of my salary. Like, it's not a big deal, but I appreciate it so much.
That's it. Yeah. Amazing.